Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Stitches podcast. As always, I'm your host, Luke Manderfeld, and we've got a little bit of a shuffled lineup this week on the All-Star panel. As always, we have Nick Budig, who so graciously hosted the podcast last week. Nick, thank you so much for doing that. Great
You're
job,
welcome.
by the way.
Big shoes to fill.
Big shoes to fill, but you did an awesome job.
History in the making.
But we're without Robert Stengler for at least the next couple weeks while he makes a big move. And we'll have more on that after it's all done. But he'll be out for a couple weeks. Special guest today is returning star Noah Manderfeld. Welcome back, Noah.
I've never been called a star before, but I'm very thankful you called me that. How's it going, guys?
Well, when you leave and you come back, we call you a star just to show how cool you are. But when you're always here, no one really thinks you're that cool. But
it really pumps up the views when we say we're the star on the show.
We're trying to punch up some stuff here.
Yeah,
just take it. But yeah, we're doing all right, man. And we missed you.
Yeah.
How's things in Wisconsin?
You know, it's central Wisconsin. Not much happens here, but making the best of it. Enjoying the wilderness, I guess.
What?
All right.
There is wilderness around here. That's
Did they have some campaign rallies over there too?
Trump was here last
Biden
week.
over there too?
He was 2 hours east of us.
Okay.
Today. Wisconsin's a battleground state. It's
exciting
big
stuff.
That's fun.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we're about a week out from the playoffs, which is, that's just snuck up on us, guys. A 60-game season is just super short. But there's still a lot to be determined, and we'll get into all of that, including what teams you do want to face in the playoffs, what teams you don't want to face. Remember, this is the new format, so there's 8 teams that get in from each league. First 2 division, finalists, so first and second place get in, and then 2 wild cards. And then it's just going to be like an NBA or NHL style for the first round. 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, and so on. So it's weird. A lot of teams are getting in. We might have the first team with a losing record get in, depending on how things shake out. Or it looks like that might not happen, but it could. And so lots to shake out here in the next 7 days. But before we get into all of that, just want to remind you that we're on all the podcast platforms. That includes Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play Music. Wherever you download your podcasts, you can find us. We'd appreciate if you share with your friends, you rate, and you leave a review, because that would help us grow the podcast so much. You can also follow us on social media. We're at Stitches Pod. Just search at Stitches Pod on Facebook or Twitter, and you'll find us. And then we're also on Gmail. If you want to send your questions or comments, just shoot us a ring at thestitchespodcast@gmail.com. That's thestitchespodcast@gmail.com. Okay, Noah, you're back in for the name game this week.
I think I had a winning streak before I left, so.
All right. Yeah, well, you always say you have a winning streak, and then you always I don't know. I feel like you don't ever have a winning streak. You just say you have a winning streak.
I block out the losses.
Let's go back to the last few episodes. You're like, I think I have a winning streak going, and
it's every episode.
Yeah. So. All right. The name game this week, Rod Curtain. Rod Curtain.
What's some
spelled like curtain, but I'm pretty sure it's
facts
curtain.
About this guy.
Yeah.
It's spelled like curtain, but I'm pretty sure it's Curtain. But it could be Rod Curtain, could be Rod Curtain.
What does he do?
Oh, facts?
Yeah.
He's an outfielder in the Oakland A's organization. I can't even get my words right today.
We're in for a rough podcast. Wow.
Nick, you want to go first? You want me to take it?
I can go first. I'll give you some time. I don't want to throw you into the fire right away.
Yeah, I got to ease myself into this.
See, the past 2 times Luke has done an object last name. He had pillow and lampshade.
I don't think I did
50-50
pillow.
shot.
I think it was something
You
else.
did pillow. I remember you did pillow.
Okay.
Rod Curtain. I'm going to say this is a real person.
All right, Noah?
There is a NASCAR driver named Ross Chastain. It's very similar. So I feel like you might have seen that name and adjusted a little bit. I'm going to say he's not a real player.
All right, so we've got no and a yes. Nick says yes, Noah says no. All right, playoffs time. I'm going to go over the American. Let's start with the American League, go to the National League. I'm going to start with entering Monday. This is what the standings look like for the playoff picture. First seed was the Rays, which, Nick, I imagine you're very happy with that. I know
Hmm.
this wasn't your year to pick them, but you've always been the biggest Rays fan. Two, White Sox. Three, A's. Four, Twins. Five, Yankees. Six, Astros. Seven, Indians. Eight, Blue Jays. First thing that pops out to me here, Twins and Yankees match up again? Like, come on.
I want to
It's a scary
know
thought.
the chances of making the playoffs. What is it now? 7 or 8? 8 times it will be, and meeting up with the same team 6 of those times
And losing
and
every single
losing.
game.
Not every single game, but most of them.
Wait,
'Cause they won a game in 2003 and 4.
So way
okay.
back, way
Well,
back.
since 2006, they haven't won a game
It's been a terrible.
in the
It's
playoff.
yeah.
13
I
game
don't.
losing streak.
It's so weird how just every year they run into them. Like,
And
can't
the
they
other
get
2 times were
can't
the
they get someone
Athletics.
from the West? Yeah, I mean,
Like,
can't.
I think it's kind of comforting to know that some things never change in this crazy 2020 year. And that thing that never changes is that the Twins and the Yankees will probably face off in the playoffs. That just makes it that much more important, though, for the Twins to win the division. They're only 2 games back entering Monday, and the White Sox are losing to the Indians as we speak. Twins are off, White Sox losing the Indians, so the Twins will maybe be a game and a half back by Tuesday. And so the Twins are still in the hunt for that division lead, but I think it just makes it all the more important because you don't want to be facing a Yankees or an Astros when you could be facing an Indians or Blue Jays or potentially a Mariners or something like that. So yeah, I mean, do you guys agree? It just makes this last week the Twins I feel like are one of the most important. It's one of the most important stretches of the season
yeah.
here
Well,
because a lot of the other teams are kind of already figured out a little bit, but for
Mhm.
the Twins, it's kind of
yeah.
you want the big giants or do you want kind of the smaller teams?
When it's not even two, do you want the big Giants or the smaller teams? It's you want to be at home. And
Yeah,
right now they are a game above the Yankees. If they have 3 in Yankee Stadium, I don't see a chance for them in that series. So
Mm-mm.
that's really huge.
yeah. It's been kind of weird. I mean, the Yankees. It seemed they had that they're 9-1 in the past 10 games, and I think they're like the 7th or 8th seed coming in to that stretch. Now, obviously, they went past the Twins. Now they're behind the Twins. So it was looking kind of nice for the Twins, but yeah, like Noah said, that the top 4 teams get 3 home games. That is so huge when you're a Twins fan, and the Twins have been the second best team at home this year, following the Yankees.
Yeah, and that's another good point there. You're right. Yankees 9-1 their last 10 games. The Rays are 7-3 in the last 10 games. Just to give
Mhm.
you a picture here, White Sox are 7-3 in the last games as well. Honestly, Yankees are still in the hunt there, but the Rays have been looking really good. I want to talk about the Rays for a little bit because Nick, you like I said, huge Rays fan. Last year you had them winning the World Series. This year probably was the year to pick them, but you're always it seems like you're always a year ahead on that stuff. Um, they've had a lot of injuries
Yeah.
this year, especially to their bullpen. This is a team that I am very scared coming postseason time. They have done a lot with a little. And we know
Mhm.
we talked about the Yankees like that last year when they had a lot of their injuries. Um, they didn't make it all the way, but people were scared of them. I like this Rays team a lot, especially if they have some of those pitchers back.
Yeah, it's a scary team. I mean, just the 21-9 record against current playoff teams or teams that are in the playoffs right now is, I mean, it's by far and away the best record out of anyone in the current seeding. And it's you if you're gonna beat teams that are in the like going into the playoffs, it's all the confidence in the world. If you're 21-9 in 30 games against those guys, and I think, and like you said, they're getting injured. They're dropping a lot of guys, and they're still winning ball games, and it's not against chump change. They've had 30 games against playoff teams this year, and they're 21-9. I think it's scary to think about.
Yeah, it's a stat that Robert likes to pull out a lot is how do you do against the playoff teams or the playoff pitchers?
Mm-hmm.
And the Rays, they hold up to the guff. No, the Rays, this is a team that we talked about a lot to begin the season as well, and they've proven us right in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to pick them over the Yankees until a last minute adjustment just because the Yankees are better on paper. But with the injuries, I mean, the Rays have proven that they can beat them. And I mean, I just look at right now. I mean, I know there's been more on the injured list. Right now, on the injured list, Austin Meadows, Yandy Diaz, G-Man Choi, Yanni Chirinos, Jose Alvarado. I mean, those were key guys last year, especially Austin Meadows. We thought he was going to be one of the few offensive forces, and they're still moving forward. uh, in potentially the number one seed in the league. I think it's incredible, and I think you guys are exactly right. Is that this Rays team is going to be scary in the playoffs because they have pitchers, they have that bullpen, and their offense isn't as bad as we thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. I'm looking at kind of the schedules for some of the teams we've been talking about. Twins, they play the Tigers and then they play the Reds to close out the season. The Tigers, you should get some wins out of that. The Reds will be a tough one. The Reds are
Yeah.
streaking, was we'll get to the as we get to the NL side of things. Um, I think having a tough. I've always thought this having a tough matchup to end the year actually helps a lot of teams. It depends on where the Twins are in that position, though, because I feel like having competitive games. This is going back to Robert's thing, and I hate always trying to prove him right, but it's like the intangibles. Like you always have those competitive games, helps you rather than
I
waiting around
I
playing
think
chump change teams.
I think it matters down the stretch, but in this season it's a little different because of the lack of off days. If you're
Yeah.
playing bad teams, you get a little bit more of a rest, which is going to be crucial these playoffs.
Yeah. Another feel good story here in this playoff picture: the Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
Such a weird year for them because
Hmm.
they've had to play in Buffalo instead of Toronto, their home games. Also a very, very young and scary team, a lot like the White Sox. They have Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Kelvin Biggio, Nate Pearson, who hasn't pitched a lot this year, but he's an up-and-comer as well. They have a lot of good guys. Hyunjin Ryu, one of Robert's favorite pitchers, has been in that rotation. And they're
Oscar
in the eighth seed right
Hernandez.
now. They're in the eighth seed right now. They have
Mm-hmm.
the Yankees. They have a 4 game set against the Yankees here, which is going to be really fun to watch. Then they got the Orioles to close things out. Can they hold on to this 8 seed as a team that not a lot, I think not a lot of people thought were going to be in the picture?
I mean,
Yeah,
I think so. I think with the Yankee series, I think it's gonna be tough for them. They've played them really tight. I mean, outside of these past 3 games, and they got swept and pretty much blown out. The first 3 games it was a lot better, um, but I think this Jays is a team that this was the season for them. I think we talked about a lot of teams that could surprise potentially for just a weird season. I mean, look, we got some other teams down in the National League that are performing better than we thought they would. But I think the Blue Jays it's almost just like they're built for a nice quick sprint for these young guys. Like you said, they have the three sons that are playing, and then added on that they've had some more offensive outputs. Um, I think that it's a spot that's theirs, and I think it's tough for them to lose it right now.
yeah, and I think in a normal year, the Blue Jays are that team that they will come in, they're going to put about a 500 record, and they're going to be in that wild card spot until the stretch, right? And in a normal year, they're not going to be making the playoffs. But in
Mm-hmm.
this year, with the expanded field, I mean, they're right there. The Angels are the next team behind them. Angels aren't going to be catching them anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
The Blue Jays, I think they belong in the playoffs. They're probably not going to do anything in the playoffs, let's be honest. But I think it's good for them to get in there because that's going to be a team we're talking about in the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. Let's go to our what teams do you want to face? What teams don't you want to face entering the playoffs here? Let's start with what teams don't you want to face. I'll start. I have the Houston Astros on here. It's kind of an obvious one. This is a defending world champion, 3 years ago. They've had a lot of playoff experience. They haven't been that good this season, though. Only 27 wins, 27 and 26. They haven't been that great recently either. But just the wealth of experience they have, even if they don't have a lot of pitching this year, this is a team I don't want to face. These guys, I feel like they'll have something to prove when they make the playoffs.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
Nick, you go with yours.
yeah, well, I was going to touch on the Astros. They've activated Bregman, Altuve, and Josh James off the IL recently, and I think that's going to help them out a lot, even with their slump. Mine is the Tampa Bay Rays, and it's solely because of how good they've been against good teams and with how little they've had with injuries. It's a scary team.
All right, no, you rounded off. What team don't you want to face in the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Astros as well, Luke. And that's because, I mean, I honestly, if I'm looking at this American League field, there's not that many teams that freak me out. The Astros are just the scariest one because they have the experience in the playoffs,
Hmm.
and they know how to win, and that matters a lot, especially when you have the experience that the Astros have. So that's why they scare me. But otherwise, I mean, most teams on paper seem pretty even. I think it's really anybody's game at this point.
Yeah, totally. Now let's go to our teams that you do want to face. We'll go reverse order. Noah, who do you want to face? Who's some of the easy pickings in this field?
I think if you're looking at a team that you want to play, um, Personally, I think it's going to be the Indians. And I know a lot of people pick them as a scary team just because of their pitching. But you look beyond that starting pitching, they're not that great of a team. They have a few offensive pieces, but other than that, it's really a team that's filled with a few stars, and the rest of it are just fill-ins. I mean, look at their outfield. Most of them are not even serviceable, but they just have to start them. And so I think if you can knock a few runs off of those pitchers, you're going to be fine to beat them. So they're the team that I want to play right now.
Nick, who's yours?
Yeah, I agree with Noah with the Indians. It is kind of funny though, because the one team that wouldn't want to face the Indians is a team that most likely will face them is the White Sox. But yeah, we've talked about their offense in previous episodes, even their pitching. Robert and I were talking, and it seems like with guys like with Shane Bieber, if he's not on early, it seems like there's a chance you can get to him. And like Noah said, their offense, it can't make up for the runs he gives up in the first two innings. So I think the Indians are a team that I'd be worried about making it out of the first round.
For me, it's the White Sox. I think it's just simple for me. I don't.
Yeah.
They have been really, really good this year, but I've said it all along. I think they're a year ahead of schedule here. I think next year they're going to be a team that can realistically go to the World Series. This year, I'm not a big fan of it. One, I think some of their pitchers are overperforming, particularly Dylan Cease. He's a 5 walk per 9, and he's a 3.52 ERA. His FIP is 5.92, almost double his ERA.
Yeah,
he's going to have to be a big pitcher for them because beyond Giolito and Keuchel, their rotation. I mean, Dane Dunning's good, but he's kind of struggling against the Indians. And Nick just pointed out before the podcast, he's only really faced one or two good teams this season. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to the playoff time, will he be, Dane Dunning we've seen? I don't know. And so I have worries about that rotation. Their bullpen is really good, but their offense is very prone to the strikeout. They like to hit a lot of home runs, as we know. And as we know historically as well, home runs are tough to do and tough to use to win in the playoffs, as we've seen with the Twins and some other teams. Mm-hmm. So this is a team I just don't see making a big run. I would love to face the White Sox right now because I feel like there's some overperformance here.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the National League now. Let's go down this standings as it stands entering Monday. We've got the Dodgers taking the cake at number 1. They have run away with it essentially. 2, the Cubs. 3, the Braves. 4, the Padres. 5, the Marlins. 6, the Cardinals. 7, the Phillies. 8, the Reds. This is a more interesting race because there are a lot of teams that are in it. We've got the Marlins, Phillies, Reds, Brewers, and Cardinals all kind of duking it out either for second place in their division or the wild card. What's interesting you most about the National League here? Definitely a lot more intriguing than the American League for sure. Nick?
I think what you said is there's so much depth to it. It's surprising teams like we talked about. I mean, we saw the Marlins come up after their quarantine and they were winning games. We thought, okay, they're going to settle down. I mean, they're still at a over 500 pace for the rest of the year, and they have exciting players. It's a young team. They didn't do any big trades. I mean, they got Starling Marte for pretty much one pitcher. So I think it's these teams like the Marlins. Even the Phillies, who we thought who were kind of a here and there team. Like you said, it's just so much depth. I think in the National League side, we saw the AL was pretty much set, but the National League, it's exciting to see some of these young teams with these young players step up.
I don't think I said in the podcast, but I said the Marlins were kind of a sleeper this year. I didn't expect them to be in a playoff picture, but I was like, this team could finish around 500 a little better, and I guess this year that makes them a playoff team. But they've been really good and surprising to me. 28 and 25. They still have some games to make up, obviously. But like I said, there's a lot of teams battling it out, and I forgot to mention the Giants, the Mets, even the Rockies are. Well, the Rockies are kind of out of it, but these are teams that are still kind of battling for it for that last spot. Noah, what are you going to be looking for in the last week between this kind of 6-7 team battle?
I want to say, I mean, there's some teams in there that do not belong in the picture, but they've been performing. And it's like teams like the Giants and the Marlins that before the year, I don't think we would be expecting them to be there. I want to see specifically the Marlins or the Giants, I want to see if one of them can get a playoff spot. Right now, the Marlins look like they're going to get it in there. I want to see the Giants make a playoff, make the playoffs. I think that would be really cool because during their first series against the Dodgers, we were all talking about that game, and the Giants looked like an absolute mess. Just the first game. And I think we all agreed the Giants were the worst team in the National League. Well, right now, clearly they aren't. And so I want to see the Giants make the playoffs just because I think it'd be kind of funny to see them make the playoffs.
Yeah, you get the Nationals and the Diamondbacks and the Pirates have been really, really bad too. 15 and 38.
Yeah.
What does that translate to over 162 games? That's pretty bad. That's over 100
That's not
losses.
good.
That's almost 50 wins, and I think that's it.
Yeah, that's really bad. Nick, I guess looking at this team, one team I wanted to point out for this podcast, the Padres, 34 and 20. You're a big Padres fan. You just have a knack for catching these kind of sleeper teams. You were on the Padres before a lot of us. I know you didn't pick them preseason, but I know you've been on them. Fernando Tatis Jr., MVP candidate. This team is playing out of its mind.
Yeah, it's surprising because I think before the podcast or before the season started, I was nagging at them for his second base problems because they got rid of Brian Dozier, and I thought they got nothing else behind him. And then they call up Jake Cronenworth, who's been absolutely incredible for them. Machado and Hosmer have been great. They're like we've seen their offense go absolutely bonkers. It's so proficient, it's so efficient. And then even with Paddock not being what we expected him to be, they still have Lament, who's pitching to a Cy Young caliber level. I think this team is their offense is dangerous, their pitching is dangerous, their defense is surprisingly good. I know we've been ragging on Tatis, but it seems like he's found a groove with his athleticness to be able to cover more ground at shortstop and make better throws. So this is a scary team, and to be one of the second best team in the National League, only behind the Dodgers. It's scary to think where this team could go in the future too, with how young they are.
Yeah, they've been really good. And another guy I wanted to point out, I was reading, I think it was a graphic on Sunday Night Baseball last night. I don't know if you guys caught this. Corbin Burns for the Brewers.
Oh, yeah, he's a Cy Young candidate.
It's pitching like a Cy Young candidate. Just totally no one's talking about him. And the Brewers are on the cusp of a playoff spot as well. They're very, very close to the Cardinals. Honestly, like, there's just a lot of like sleeper teams, and I think that's the one thing we can take out of this 8-team playoff picture is that there's a lot of teams that are getting that are kind of sleepers. Like we got the Marlins, we've got the Blue Jays. You got teams like that are going to be kind of the feel-good stories. Now, I don't want to see this around permanently, but it's fun to watch for now in this 60-game season that's been a dead sprint for sure.
I think it gives a lot of these teams an opportunity, like the Marlins, the Blue Jays, and the Giants they don't have to trade away half their prospects to make a playoff run. They can get experience for these guys. And I think that's huge for a lot of these young guys to see playoff baseball and just get a feel of it and get that taste in their mouth of what it's like and what the rush is like to play playoff baseball.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think there is still the risk of taking away the excitement of that last week. And right now, I mean, you got teams fighting in the National League, but how much excitement really is there? And I don't really feel any right now.
Yeah, that's true. And this is where we'd see maybe a team under 500 because we have 3 playoff contenders at 500. We have one that's one above 500. And so that could easily dip if they all have bad ends to the year. That could easily dip below that mark. Well, the Reds and Brewers are facing each other at the end of the year, but we've got a couple teams that could go under that threshold. Let's go to the teams that you do want to face, teams you don't want to face right now. Who's the team you don't want to face? Nick, we'll start with you. What scares you in the National League?
It's going to be a weird one. It's the Atlanta Braves, and I say it's weird is because of their pitching staff. We see it just get decimated by injuries. Max Fried has been lights out, and he got put on the 10-day. They're just getting Cole Hamels back. When we saw a couple weeks ago, when we saw the rotation, it was a bunch of AAA guys piecing it together. But what scares me is that offense, and it's been absolutely bonkers. They have 4 guys in the top 10 of OPS, and 3 guys having over 1,000 OPS in that offense. I know we talk about how home runs don't carry in playoffs. This team it's so deep and it's so scary just outside of home runs how incredible the offense is, and they're gonna be getting some pitching back. So I think the Braves have a chance to be one of the scariest teams in the National League.
For me, I do not want to face the Reds right now. They're playing some good ball, and if they get in, they have obviously one of the best rotations in baseball. Their offense is starting to figure it out. Our guy Akiyama, who we mentioned a few weeks ago on the podcast, has been underwhelming at the plate. He's been pretty good at the plate since then. And so this is a team I don't want to face. This is a team I liked a lot at the beginning of the year. I didn't pick them to win the division. I picked the Cubs to win the division, but I thought the Reds were going to be kind of that dark horse, like wild card team that would make a run at the playoffs. So definitely a team I don't want to match up with now. Noah, what's your team you don't want to face?
Of all the teams that we picked to win divisions or be at the top, right? It's the typical ones like the Twins, the Yankees, the Astros. We had the Reds up there, maybe even the Cardinals, the Nationals. Almost all of them have had issues this year, except for the Dodgers. The Dodgers are that one team that we all expected to do well, and they've done exactly what they were expected to. They have the experience. They have the biggest chip that you could ever have, losing 2 World Series and having one, what they see as being taken away from them. The Dodgers are going to be a force to be reckoned with this year, and I would be surprised if they don't make the World Series. I do not want to run into this tank.
Yeah, no doubt. And just to add to a couple of points for the Reds, Sonny Gray's coming off the IL. And they've won 8 of their last 10 games. So
yeah, the Reds are scary.
Getting very hot right now.
If they play the Dodgers in the first round, that would actually be a fun series to watch.
That'd be really fun. That'd be a really good matchup for the first round for sure. All right, so who do you want to face? What's a team that's weak you can knock off easy? Noah?
The Cardinals. They've looked iffy all season long. I mean, everything is just meh about them, and I don't see them making any thunder in the playoffs. The only reason they did it last year was because of Goldschmidt and Ozuna, and I don't think that happens this year.
Well, they don't have Ozuna, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Nick?
I'm gonna say the Phillies. It's just because there's nothing behind really their Nola or Wheeler and the pitching staff. I don't think the offense is able to make up enough for it. Their bullpen has been pretty atrocious this year, and that's something we thought about when they're coming in. So I think the Phillies is a team that could get a pretty quick exit.
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with Noah on my Cardinals here. Besides, they have the least amount of runs out of any team right now in the playoff picture. Surprisingly, the Reds are just above them. But like I said, the Reds' offense has been a lot better recently, even though they haven't scored a lot of runs tonight. But the Cardinals have relied a lot on their pitching like they always do. But you have to have some offense. You can't just have Paul Goldschmidt. Dylan Carlson's heating up a little bit, so that's exciting. But without Ozuna, without any of that thump, which they really do not have, it's one of the worst lineups in baseball, one of the worst outfield lineups. Like their 3 outfielders are the least productive outfielders in baseball. They could get shut down by a lot of these good staffs that the National League has. And so, easy pickings. I think the Cardinals are going to get eliminated first round. That's the team you want to face. And right now, they'd be facing the Braves, looks like. So, there you go.
Well,
the Braves don't have to worry about their pitching.
Yeah. To me, I mean, I think the Cardinals are the National League version of the Indians, except their pitching isn't as good, I think. I think it's fair.
Honestly, I think the Cardinals, like, if you look at statistically, I think their pitching's been better.
Well, it's because of they also have a bullpen, too.
Their bullpen's really good.
Yeah.
But, definitely not a very good, well-rounded team. So, all right, anything you guys want to add before we send it off? We've got a fun week ahead, huh?
Yeah, there's some fun games watching right now, a lot of playoffs games. I mean, I agree with the fact I'm not very – it seems like we talked about, it seems like it's just flying by, and it did 60 games. And it's just like I'm still waiting for the season to start. It feels like we're just starting to get into the swing of things, and now it's like, oh.
Yeah.
But it's
playoff time.
It's going to be a fun final week. A lot of 4-game series that are going to be a lot of playoff opportunities.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why there's that excitement taken out is because it's just 60 games, and so it doesn't really feel like the end. So, I mean, there's a bigger playoff picture, but also normally this is, June in a normal year, so.
I'm just excited to hear the TBS music, the MLB Network music, Fox Sports, get those epic intros going, and we'll have playoff baseball, man.
We could have 8 elimination games in one day. I'm pretty sure. That is crazy.
That would be a day.
Yeah.
That's a lot of heartbreak in one day.
Yeah.
No doubt. All right, guys. Well, lots of good baseball to tune in. Like I said, up in the upcoming weeks. The one to watch right now, Brewers and Reds are facing off. They're 2 of the teams that are vying for those last playoff spots in the National League. So that's one you want to watch now, and much more to come later this week. All right, let's do the name game, and we'll send you guys off. Name game I gave was Rod Curtain. Nick said it was a player. Noah said it wasn't a player. It's not a player.
Wow.
And Nick, you had my mindset right because I just went to the Home Depot to get curtain rods. So here you go, man.
Wow.
I'm a one-track man. What can I say? I'm not very creative
I
when it
remember
comes to this
Luke
stuff.
used to be so mysterious about his ways, like he had a book or something.
Yeah, I used to
And
try
now
I'm
he's
something
running
just
else.
out of.
like,
I've
Now he's
just
just
run out
going
of
to
ideas at this
Menards,
point.
going to Home Depot. Ah, lampshade.
I've run out of. We've done so many names. Like it's been what, a year and 5 months since we started this podcast back
no, we
up.
started in January, so it's been a year and
No,
it's almost been, yeah.
year and 9 months since we started this podcast
Almost
back
two
up,
years.
and we're doing it every week. So we're talking about like 90 names I've gone through, almost 80 names. So like, give me a break, guys. Come on,
You've gone through like a tenth of the entire major league
Yeah.
active
players,
rosters.
yeah, active
Yeah.
rosters.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll get there. I might have to expand it to X players, which could get really goofy because there's some old timer names
Oh
that are
yeah.
really funny.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll do that. All right. Watch some baseball. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast because we have coverage throughout the playoffs. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. And we'd really appreciate if you rate and leave a review. It would help us grow. Share with your friends if you can. Any way to help us, that we'd really appreciate it. You can also follow us on social media. Just search at Stitches Pod on Facebook or Twitter. Send us a note on email. We're at these Stitches Podcast at gmail.com. That's the Stitches Podcast at gmail.com. Talk to y'all next week. Take care.